Sweat poured down the Viet Cong sentinel's face like hot oil, the midnight jungle alive with the guttural croak of frogs and the distant thunder of American artillery shaking the earth at exactly 2:17 a.m. on July the 14th, 1968. His AK-47 trembled in his grip, fingers slick against the trigger, as a single twig snapped, not 20 feet away, but 5. He whipped around, eyes bulging into the inky black, heart slamming like a war drum. Leaves rustled faintly, parting like a whisper, but there was nothing. No silhouette, no glint of steel, no ragged breath. Just the void. And in that void, unseen eyes stared back, cold and unblinking. How could death stalk so close, silent as a shadow, dressed like jungle trash? This wasn't just ambush, it was erasure. The Australian SAS had turned men into myths, beggars who butchered battalions without a trace. From the Viet Cong commander's bunker deep in the Cu Chi tunnels, paranoia festered like an open wound. Lieutenant Nguyen Van Hao hadn't slept in 3 days, his maps scribbled with frantic red circles marking ghost patrols that struck and vanished. "They come from the trees themselves," he muttered to his radio man, voice cracking as he chain-smoked stolen American cigarettes, the acrid smoke mingling with the stench of mildew and fear sweat. Every report from forward sentries painted the same nightmare. Shapes that weren't shapes, whispers that weren't wind. One survivor, a boy from Hanoi, barely 18, had staggered back at dawn yesterday, babbling about demons in rags who materialized from vines, slit throats with knives wrapped in tape, and melted away before the echoes died. Nguyen slammed his fist on the bamboo table, splintering it. These weren't the noisy Yankee grunts he knew, the ones whose helmets clanged like bells against branches, whose starched uniforms crackled like dry leaves 100 meters out. No, these were something profane, their fear gnawing at him worse than malaria. Contrast that terror with the Americans' ironclad ritual, a spectacle of spit and polish straight from West Point playbooks. Picture the 1st Infantry Division patrols, trudging through the triple canopy under the broiling sun. Crisp, olive-drab fatigues tucked and buttoned to perfection, steel pots gleaming under sweatbands, boots mirror-polished despite the mud. Officers barked orders like parade ground sergeants. Chin straps tight, no beards past stubble. Because in their world, visual order bred battlefield dominance. A single loose thread or unbloused trouser leg could earn a Article 15 reprimand. It was brute force incarnate, helmets rounding heads into unnatural bullseyes, fabric stiff as cardboard rustling with every stride, reflections flashing off buckles like Morse code for "Here I am." Declassified after-action reports from MACV Intelligence, stamped top secret in 1969, later revealed the grim math. U.S. regulars were spotted at 400 meters on average, heard at 200, engaged at 50. Their silhouette screamed "Invader," a mechanized man breaking the jungle's flow. But the CSR, the Special Air Service Regiment from down under, flipped the script with surgical heresy. Through the eyes of Nguyen's scouts, they weren't soldiers, they were abominations, glimpsed only in death throes. Diaries captured from a demolished outpost, translated in a 1970 Rand Corporation study, described them as jungle ghouls, uniforms deliberately shredded at hems and elbows to mimic tattered foliage, hung loose on frames starved lean by weeks in the green hell. No helmets, those clunky domes that pinged off vines like pinballs, but soft slouch hats, floppy brims shattering the human outline into harmless branches, faces smeared in cocoa and ash camo, bandanas knotted pirate style to soak sweat without drip, boots hacked short or swapped for civilian sneakers that gripped roots silently. Equipment? Paratrooper packs cocooned in green duct tape, no shine, no rattle. Rifles silenced with rags, slings woven from paracord to sway like vines. One VC journal entry smudged with blood raved, "They smell of rot and earth, move like snakes shedding skin. My brother saw one sip water from a leaf, 10 paces off, and thought it rain." Australian SASR trooper diaries, declassified in the 1990s from Canberra archives, echo the calculation. Sergeant Mick Ghost Riley, on his 3rd tour, scrawled by firefly light, "Yanks look like Christmas trees wrapped in cellophane. We look like the bloody bush pissed itself out." Their method wasn't rebellion, it was evolution. Old-school camo, brute overlays, like painting a tank green and calling it invisible. SASR's was psychological vivisection, break the human form at every scale. A 1967 U.S. Army field manual contrasted it brutally. Conventional troops as elephants in a teacup, SSR as ants in the sugar. Vietnamese intelligence intercepts, logged in CIA station Saigon files, confirmed the body count disparity. American patrols lost 12 men to ambushes per insertion. SASR chalks returned pristine, enemy dead piled like cordwood. Word spread through U.S. forward bases like a bad rash. At Fire Support Base Crook, 25 clicks north of Saigon, Colonel Harlan T. Whitaker paced the CP tent, chain-smoking Luckies, his West Point polish fraying at the edges. He'd just debriefed a bloodied 25th Infantry platoon. Helmets dented, uniforms shredded by booby traps, triggered a half-click out. "Discipline, boys," he'd growled, "is our edge." Then, at 1600 hours sharp, a chopper flared in, disgorging 5 figures that looked spat from the underworld. They shambled from the skid like refugees, slouch hats caked in mud, shirts unbuttoned to the navel revealing hairy chests etched with scars, trousers slashed to knees over thongs that passed for. One had a beard like a biblical prophet. Another taped a captured AK mag to his SLR for balance. Whitaker's jaw dropped, aides stifling snickers. "What in God's name is this circus?" he bellowed, storming forward. "You call that a uniform? Vagabonds! Pirates! I'll have your CO's bars for this disgrace." The lead Aussie, Captain Lachlan "Lad" Forbes, didn't flinch. He spat a wad of jungle chore, eyes flat as a dingo. "With respect, sir, it's called surviving." Whitaker laughed, a bark devoid of mirth, circling them like a drill instructor on meth. "Surviving? You look like you lost a war with a hedgerow. My boys march proper, steel pots, full kit. That's soldiering." The SASR men exchanged glances, saying nothing, their rags dripping intel from a night insertion no Yankee patrol could dream. Forbes tossed a bloodied ear tag, VC Lieutenant, fresh, at the colonel's feet. "We got 12 last night, sir. Close enough to smell their fear. Yours hear us coming?" Whitaker's laugh died, the jungle's hum suddenly oppressive. For the first time, doubt flickered in those parade ground eyes. These weren't undisciplined drunks, they were harbingers. And as the sun dipped, painting the rags in crimson, the colonel wondered, what if the ghosts were already here? Colonel Harlan T. Whitaker stood frozen in the crimson haze of the dying sun, the bloodied ear tag at his boots like a gauntlet thrown from hell itself. His aides shifted uneasily, the chopper's rotors thumping to a halt behind him, stirring dust that clung to his starched fatigues like accusations. Captain Forbes and his ragtag phantoms didn't move. Their eyes, those flat predator eyes, locked on him, unyielding as the jungle's grip. Whitaker's mind reeled, replaying the platoon's debrief. 12 VC ghosts in rags, throats opened silent confessions. "How?" he rasped, voice barely above the cicada's scream. Forbes just grinned, teeth stained beetle red from jungle tobacco, and shouldered his SLR, taped and scarred like a relic from some forgotten crusade. "Watch and learn, Colonel." They melted into the tree line without salute, leaving Whitaker staring at emptiness, a hollow pit yawning in his gut, where West Point certainty. That night, in the CP tent's stifling heat, Whitaker pored over intel like a man possessed, the bulb swinging shadows across maps bleeding red from failed declassified MACV dispatches from '68, stamped with Eisenhower's ghost, painted the SASR's heresy in brutal ink, 0 visual signatures under 20 meters, auditory profiles indistinguishable from wind. One after-action report from a joint op near the Parrot's Beak quoted a U.S. spotter. They weren't there. Then the bodies were. Whitaker slammed the folder, sweat beading on his buzz-cut scalp. His own boys? Elephants crashing symphonies through the bush. He'd seen it yesterday. Lieutenant Hargrove's patrol, helmets bobbing like buoys in a green sea, trousers bloused tight over boots that squelched announcements with every step. At 300 meters, VC snipers had picked them off like coconuts, the crack of AKs answered by futile M16 bursts. Discipline, his ass. It was a death knell, helmets clanging on vines like dinner bells, uniforms whispering betrayals with every rustle. From the VC side, buried in a captured notebook from a raised hooch, translated by CIA linguists in Saigon 69, the fear was primal, visceral. Private Tran Minh Duc, a tunnel rat from the Delta, scribbled by Candlegut. The American dogs roar like thunder, their round heads shining through leaves like moon. We hear them laughing, cursing, boots pounding roots a li away. But these others, they breathe the mist. Last moonless night, my post at the stream, I pissed 10 steps from one. He crouched, hat folding into ferns, rags blending with the mud like spilled entrail. No smell of gun oil or soap, just rot and rain. His knife whispered across Comrade Vin's neck. Vin gurgled tea from his throat, eyes wide on nothing. I fired blind. Empty jungle. Demons don't die. They dissolve. Duke's final entry, inked hasty. They mock our traps, step light as ants over Punji. Mothers curse the day we woke the bush. Whitaker chain-smoked through dawn, paranoia coiling like barbed wire in his chest. By Euro 600, he was on the horn to brigade, demanding eyes on the Aussies. Shadow Forbes is chalk, he barked. Full report. A Blackbird recon team, 2 grunts from the 101st, gear pristine as his own playbook, trailed them into the Rungsat Special Zone, a mangrove hell 40 clicks southeast. Through field glasses smeared with humidity, they watched the transformation. CSR stripped down further. Shirts knotted at waists exposing torsos patterned in leaf mud camo, trousers slashed to shorts revealing calves wrapped in vine for grip, slouch hats brimmed low, shadowing eyes into pits. No packs clanking, gear lashed silent with 100 Netwinov tape, canteens drained into bamboo nodes, rifles shrouded in sacking that drank light. One trooper, a wiry bastard named Trooper Snake Harlan, name like a bad omen, smeared his face with charcoal and sap, then vanished mid-stride, folding into a thicket where the spotters swore bare earth lay moments before. The recon men's log, filed post-mission and leaked in Pentagon Papers addenda, dripped dread. At 14:32 hours, contact. VC Trail Watch, 6 men, AKs slung lazy. SASR closes to 15 meters undetected. Yanks would trigger at 80. Helmets skylining, boots telegraphing. These ghosts? Leaves sigh, and 2 VC crumple, garroted from shadows. No shots. Rest scatter screaming, Ma! Souls. Whitaker read it by lantern that eve, hands trembling on the telex. His spotters had pulled back at dusk, faces ashen, one muttering about eyes in the vines. Contrast hit like napalm. U.S. doctrine, forged in European meadows, treated jungle like a stage, soldiers as spotlit actors, uniforms the costume of empire. SASR? Alchemists, transmuting men to myth. A 1968 Australian Army eval, buried in ADF vaults till 95, quantified its savage. Conventional camo detection range, 350 meter. SASR adaptive disruption, 10 meter. It's not hiding, Riley's diary sneer. It's unbecoming human. Word ricocheted through FSB crook like shrapnel. GIs whispered around sea-rat fires, envy twisting into awe. Aussies look like bums, kill like reapers. Whitaker couldn't sleep, the tent canvas flapping accusations. He envisioned his next patrol, crisp, clanking, plunging into that same swamp, helmets winking death invites. Forbes's ear tag burned in his memory, a talisman of unraveling truths. By midnight, resolve hardened amid the fever dream. He'd force a joint op, see the ragged sorcery firsthand. But deep down, in the sweat-soaked dark, a voice hissed, what if the ghosts don't wait? What if they're already circling, slouch hats blending with the stars? Dawn cracked over fire support base crook like a ruptured artery. The jungle exhaling steam that reeked of decay and diesel as Colonel Harlan T. Whitaker strode from his tent, eyes bloodshot from a night of chain-smoked revelation. His starched fatigues hung crisp despite the humidity, a defiant flag against the chaos. But inside, doubt gnawed like termites. By 0700 hours, orders snapped out via field phone. Joint op, Operation Phantom Veil. My 25th Infantry leads, Forbes's circus embeds. Insert Rungsat, EO 800 tomorrow. Prove your parlor tricks, Captain. Across the wire, Forbes's voice crackled laconic. Roger that, sir. Bring your shine. Whitaker slammed the receiver, ignoring the tremor in his fist, and turned to his staff. Gear check. Full kit. No shortcuts. We'll show these beach bums real soldiering. From the VC Spiderhole networks burrowing the Rungsat mangroves, Lieutenant Nguyen Van Hou's spies whispered the invasion like a death sentence. A captured U.S. shortwave fragment, logged in his mildewed ledger dated July 16, 1968, painted the doom. Big Yankee push, helos thick as locusts. Nguyen hadn't bathed in weeks, his uniform a crust of salt and fear, nails bitten to bloody nubs as he huddled with his sappers. The clanking ones come again, he hissed to Huang, the scar-faced scout whose brother Duke had vanished into demon whispers. But whispers say ragmen ride with them, ghosts who drink shadows. Huang spat Beetlejuice, eyes darting to the tunnel mouth where roots dripped like veins. Declassified NVA after-action summaries from Hanoi archives, surfaced in 1972, captured the hysteria. Sentries posted triple shifts, punji pits doubled. Every rustle now a potential unraveling. "We hear the helmets first," Huang muttered. Then the scream. Contrast the impending collision. Whitaker's platoon, 30 men from Charlie Company, kitted like West Point mannequins marching to Armageddon. Helmets strapped tight, liners sweat-soaked but polished beneath. Fatigues bloused over jungle boots caked in parade ground wax. Trousers whispering nylon betrayals with each stride. M16 slung regulation, ammo pouches bulging symmetric, bayonets sheathed mirror bright. A 1968 MACV training circular, quoted verbatim in declassified RAND briefs, mandated it. Uniformity instills esprit, slovenliness invites defeat. They boarded the Hueys at 0745, rotors whipping a whirlwind that plastered trousers flat, helmets bobbing like buoys in a storm-tossed sea. Detection profile? A symphony. Boots thudding plywood skids, gear jangling like loose change, voices barking call and response over. VC spotters a click-out clocked them at 500 meters airborne. The black silhouettes against dawn sky screaming, "Pray." The SASR element? 5 shadows grafted seamless, their vagabond alchemy peaking in prep. Captain Forbes's chalk stripped to essence under canvas lean-to, slouch hats brimmed into floppy invisibility cowls, uniforms eviscerated further, shirts reduced to vests knotted over torsos smeared in layered camo, mud-flecked green, cocoa streaks for bark, ash for hollows, trousers hacked to mid-thigh, hems frayed into grass skirts, feet in Jesus boots, Vietnamese rubber sandals scavenged silent, or boots sawn low profile, soles wrapped vine for traction whisper, gear transmute, F1 grenades cocooned in sock sacks, SLR rifles sheathed in Hessian potato bags dyed leaf brown, slings braided from bootlaces and creeper. Trooper Snake Harlan, the chameleon incarnate, tested it midfield. Crouched in knee-high ferns, he froze. One breath, an outline dissolved, hat folding into fronds, rags sipping light like blotting paper. A U.S. observer, Latorne Ellis from the platoon, gawked through binos. "Christ, he's gone. Swear on my mama." SASR patrol logs, unsealed ADF 2005, quantified the heresy. Conventional noise signature, 65 dB stride, adaptive, 22 dB, wind parity, visual break, 95% foliage index match. Insertion hit at Aero 812, Hueys flaring low over mangrove claws, downdraft shredding prop wash into veils. Whitaker's men piled out crisp, boots sinking announcements into muck, helmets clanging foliage like xylophone. "Form wedge, eyes sharp," he bellowed, his own steel pot winking sun daggers. Forbes's ghosts dismounted liquid, splashing featherlight, already fragmenting into the green lattice. No bunching, no chatter, slouch hats melting brims first into root snarls. Ellis's radio crackled to CP. Yanks skylined 100-meter out. Aussies, poof. The patrol snaked inward. Whitaker Central, M16 gripped white-knuckled, every sense screaming exposure. At 20 minutes in, first contact tease, VC booby tripwire, monofilament glinting. His point man foot Ramirez booted it blind. Click echoed like judgment. SASR's snake materialized from nowhere, knife severing the strand mid-air, vanishing before Ramirez blinked. "What the fu—" Ramirez stammered, helmet pivoting wild, rustling a bush symphony. Nguyen's perimeter, 800 meters coreward, pulsed panic. Scout Huang crouched in his hide, AK sweaty, when the jungle belched intruders. First, the roarers. Helmets rounding through mangroves like pale moons at 400 meters. Boots slurping mud broadcasts. Fatigues crackling invitations. "Yankees," he hissed into the radio, fingers fumbling. But trailing? Nothing. No clank, no shine. Just a sigh of breeze that parted leaves wrong. Huang's diary fragment, recovered post-op by Aussie trackers and cited in a 1969 CIA PSYOPs eval. "Dog's thunder, then death creeps on spider legs. I smelled them. Earth and old blood, 5 paces off my flank. One hat like wilted leaf, face pits of night. He watched me radio, patient as croc. I bolted. Bullets chased my ghost. Gunfire erupted at 0934. Ramirez's squad triggering claymores, screams ripping the canopy as Whitaker dove, helmet pinging shrapnel like pinballs. In the melee's heart, SASR bloomed lethal. Forbes's knife flashed from shadow, VC sapper gurgling mid-throw. Snake garroted a sniper whose AK chattered wild into ferns. Whitaker, prone in muck, glimpsed it through powder smoke, a vagabond beard-framed face, bandana swathed, rising from a corpse heap unscathed, slouch hat unbroken, no helmet bounce, no uniform tear, rags absorbed rounds like sponge. His radio man yelped, "Colonel, they're in the enemy's lap." Body count tallied hasty, 8 VC down silent, SASR 0 scratches, Yanks, 4 KIA, helmets hold like sieves. As medevac thumped inbound, Whitaker locked eyes with Forbes across the charnel. The captain's rag steamed enemy blood, outline fraying into dusk. "Your shine drew 'em, sir," Forbes said flat, wiping blade on thigh slash. "We finished the job." Whitaker's throat closed, the pit in his gut now a chasm. Discipline, a funeral march. These pirates weren't undisciplined. They were the apex predator's disguise. And as rotors lifted them out, the mangroves seemed to watch, slouch hats nodding from branches. What unholy lesson waited deep? Medevac Hueys clawed skyward from the Rungsat muck at 10:15 hours, rotors shredding mangrove leaves into confetti that rained accusations on the blood-soaked patrol. Colonel Harlan T. Whitaker huddled in the belly of the lead bird, his helmet dented and smeared with someone else's plasma, starched fatigues now a sodden shroud, clinging like regret. 4 body bags slumped beside him, Ramirez's squad, helmets holed clean through at the crowns, faces frozen in the shock of betrayal. Across the troop compartment, Captain Forbes's SASR ghosts lounged feral, slouch hats tilted back, rags steaming in the updraft, wiping blades on thighs without a word. One, Snake Harlan, chewed a root like it owed him money, his face camo cracking into a grin that showed filed teeth stained from jungle dyes. Whitaker's radio man retched into his helmet liner, but the colonel stared, unblinking, at the ear tag's twin now dangling from Forbes's neck, another vest notched fresh. "How many more?" Whitaker growled over. Forbes shrugged, hat brim flopping lazy. "Enough to make Nguyen shit his tunnels." Back at Fire Support Base Crook by 11:30, the debrief tent boiled with brass and bandages, air thick as napalm resin. Whitaker paced the sawdust floor, chain-smoking camels, till the stubs scorched his fingers, his voice a rasp carving through declassified 25th Infantry logs from that day, unsealed in 94 National Archives dumps, captured his unraveling raw. Enemy engaged at extreme close range, 8 confirmed kills, no SASR exposure. U.S. losses attributable to initial draw fire. He slammed the after-action onto the table, maps fluttering like dying birds. "Your bums drew 0 fire. Explain." Forbes, shirtless now under the bulb glare, his torso a map of scars and leaf mud tattoos, leaned forward, eyes dingo flat. "Not bums, sir. Blanks. Jungle don't see blanks." Snake Harlan, cross-legged in corner shadow, piped up throaty. "Your helmets sing, Colonel. Ours hum." Laughter rippled from the Aussies, low and salt-crusted, while Whitaker's staffers shifted, crisp collars wilting. From Lieutenant Nguyen Van Hou's fevered bunker, 15 clicks deeper in the mangrove veins, the ops echo arrived mangled to bloodied runners. Huang staggered in at dusk, uniform shredded by ghost knives, one ear half missing, dribbling pus. "The thunder brought them!" he gasped, collapsing into hammock netting, Hanoi Red Star ink from his captured notebook bleeding fresh. Yankee helmets crashed like temple bells, pulling our fire at 300 paces. We poured lead, claymores bloomed red, but from the smoke, spiders came. No clank, no shine. One wrapped wire round my neck, ragman, hat wilted as corpse leaf, breath hot with earth rot. He whispered boo before twist. 5 brothers gone silent, dogs lost 4 screaming. Nguyen clutched his AK like a talisman, paranoia spiking fever hot. CIA intercepts from Co-SVN signals, logged Saigon Station July 17, 1968, dripped the dread. Allied ghosts infiltrate Yankee noise shield. Recommend total perimeter denial. Burn mangrove. Sleep evaded Nguyen. Every drip from tunnel roots now a bootless step. Every sigh whined a slouch hat rustle. Scale the slaughter stark. Whitaker's crisp platoon as ocean liners plowing fog. Helmets bullseye beacons. Bloused boots churning wakes of slurp echoes. Gear symphony announcing doom 400 meters out. SASR. Fog itself, dissolving outlines into fractal fernbreak. A 1968 joint U.S.-Australian field trial, buried in ADF Pentagon exchanges till 98, dissected it clinical. Conventional troops generated 72 dB footfall under load, visual contrast ratio 4.1 against foliage. SASR adaptive rigs clocked 18 dB, rain parity, and 0.2.1 blend. human form fractured into 17 micro-silhouettes per man. Not camo, Forbes drawled in debrief, tracing a vine-wrapped knife hilt. Erasure, yank hits for parade, hours for predation. Whitaker envisioned his next sweep. Sans ghosts, elephants trumpeting through anthill, helmets clanging funeral marches while VC laughed from shadows. Word of Phantom Vale scorched U.S. lines like Greek fire. At Long Bin Post, generals poured teletypes, envy souring briefing. Whitaker, sleepless again, haunted the wire at midnight, staring into the black where slouch hats might nod. By Zorro 400, July 18th, he cornered Forbes at the chopper pad, Dawn's first bleed painting the rags prophetic. "One more push," he demanded, voice cracked steel. "Deep recon, your way." But my boys observed. Forbes eyed him long, then nodded slow. "Fair dinkum, sir, but strip 'em down, or they'll shine your grave." Reluctant, Whitaker issued waivers. Loosen collars, hats optional. His platoon grumbled, hacking hems clumsy, helmets swapped hesitant for boonie covers, still clanking amateurs in a ghost war. Insertion redux at 0530, slicks ghosting low over Rungsat's claw roots. Nguyen's net tightened, triple sentries in spider holes, punjis laced fresh. From Huang's successor's hide, pivot lay, diary ripped from his cooling hand, post-op. Roarers came quieter, but helmets peaked pale at 250 meters. We waited patient, then the melt. 5 voids sipping mist, hats folding seamless, rags breathing mangrove pulse. Lay-saw snake crouch atop root ball, 10 paces blind, face void pits, knife sipping air, no smell but tide rot. Garrote took sentry beside me, I froze statue, piss warm down leg. They passed inside, leaves kissing hems, gunfire cracked sparse at 0622. Whitaker's observers spotting late, M16s barking wild. SASR reaped unseen, 14 VC stacked silent, tunnels breached, intel snatched. Maps marking Hanoi supply lines. Whitaker's forward element stumbled on the charnel at 0700, faces paling under half-ass camo. Bodies piled haphazard, throats yawned, eyes bulging void stares. Forbes emerged from Franz, blood map fresh, slouch hat dew kit. Nguyen's command graph, he tossed a sodden sheaf. "Your shine baited, we hooked." Colonel knelt amid the dead, fingering a VC journal. "Ghosts wear our dead skins now." His helmet felt leaden, foolish, a dinner gong in hell's orchestra. Discipline cracked wide, revelation searing. Vaunted polish was vanity's noose. These vagabonds weren't undisciplined. They were doctrine's death knell, pirates piloting invisibility. As exfil rotors whooped inbound, Whitaker shed his steel pot into the muck, eyes hardening resolve. But in the canopy's whisper, Nguyen's last stand brewed, and the ghosts hungered deeper still. Exfil rotors thumped retreat from the Rungsat charnel at 745, Hueys bulging with bloodied ghosts and the colonel's shattered certainty. Mangrove claws snagging skids like vengeful fingers. Colonel Harlan T. Whitaker clutched Nguyen's command graph in the downdraft. Sodden pages reeking of gunpowder and bile, his discarded helmet sinking forgotten into the muck. A steel relic of empire's folly. Captain Forbes's SASR Phantoms sprawled opposite, slouch hats wilted over eyes like spent sentinel, rags absorbing the crimson spray from stacked VC dead without a sink. Trooper Snake Harlan dangled a fresh ear tag beside his first, grinning through camo cracks. Nguyen's address book, Colonel. "Party at his hooch tonight?" Whitaker's jaw clenched, the graph's ink bleeding truths. Main supply vein from Cambodia, troop concentrations ripe for the kill. No more half measures. "Full assault," he barked into the hand mic, voice steel-forged anew. "All assets, end this spider." Deep in the Kuchai web's rotten heart, Lieutenant Nguyen Van Hao convulsed in fevered command, bunker air thick as congealed blood, walls weeping roots that dripped like executioner's sweat. Days blurred into delirium since Phantom Vale's echo. Hoang's mangled corpse delivered by runner, earless skull propped warning on the tunnel lip. Nguyen's ledger, clawed from his rigid fingers post-raid and dissected in a 1970 CIA behavioral study, scrawled the abyss. July 18th, 0200 hours. Yankee thunder fades, rag demons sip the dark. Lee's last whisper. They wear death's skin, hats folding into our grave. Triple punjis, claymores triple-wired, still they creep. Mother's ghosts now stalk us. He hadn't eaten, surviving on beetle and paranoia. AK cradled like a lover's corpse. Sentries rotated hourly, lest slouch hats nod from shadows. NVA high command cables, intercepted Hanoi-Saigon relay July 19th, screamed desperation. Cu Chi ghosts dissolve battalions. Evacuate KOSVN cell or perish. Every root creek now a bootless step. Every bat flutter a bandana sigh. Nguyen fired blind into voids, wasting ammo on wind. Contrast the apocalypse brewing. Whitaker's hammer-forged assault. 120 men from the 25th Alpha and Charlie Company, kitted in bastardized revelation. No full polish. Collars loosened per waiver. Hems hacked ragged under duress. Helmets swapped reluctant for boonie hats scavenged from supply dumps, still clanking amateurs with M16s rattling. Insertion at 2200 hours. Gunships raking flanks with minigun hymns, flares popping skeletal over the canopy. Detection scream dialed down but pulsing, boots slurping 150 meters out, voices hushed but gear whispering betrayals, silhouettes fractured clumsy against the flawless ghost. Declassified up order MACV SG 6847, stamped urgent, quantified the shift. Conventional profile reduced 40%. SASR, lead elements zero trace vanguard. Forbes's 5 alchemists spearheaded liquid death. Rags evolved to apex erasure, uniforms eviscerated to loincloths and vests, torsos armored in layered mangrove bark, slathered sapglue, slouch hats brimmed into breathing cowls that drank starlight, boots, discarded, bare feet calloused obsidian, or Jesus sandals laced vine silent. Gear dissolved, grenades in bamboo quivers, SLRs shrouded burlap ghosts, knives pommels wrapped hair from fallen foes for balance whisper. SASR mission logs, ADF declass 2012 distilled the sorcery. Night adaptive index, 98.7% foliage parity. Human contour shattered 23 fractal disruptions man. VC auditory threshold breached 5 mouse. They infiltrated first. Snake Harlan coiling through pungy lace like smoke. Forbes sipping tunnel vent air at the grate. Nguyen's breath fogged the bars. Oblivious 10 paces in. Contact ignited at 23 Wiyusin. Whitaker's main body triggering outer claymores, blasts blooming orange inviting chaos, screams ripping the night as helmets pinged shrapnel symphony. Nguyen bolted upright in his hooch, AK blazing wild into the bulkhead. Demons! Helmets bait! Spiders come! His sappers poured fire outward, tracer lace stitching the dark, but from the smoke veins slithered voids. Private Le's successor, Pust Pham, huddled in cross-tunnel, diary gouged hasty. Yank roar pulls eyes, then melt. Hat wilted as my fear. Face pit swallowing light. Knife sips comrade Bin's scream silent. Blood sprays my cheek hot as shame. I claw air. Nothing. They pass inside, breathing mold. SASR Bloom Terminal. Forbes garroted Nguyen's radio man mid-call. Snake knifed 2 sappers emerging blind. The rest reaped throats in flicker flash. Rags drinking gore like earth. Whitaker's force breached core at 2342, stumbling on the abattoir. Nguyen sprawled crucified on bamboo stakes, throat yawned judgment, eyes bulging eternal void stare, ledger clutched like accusation. 14 VC stacked precise, tunnels rigged demo charge silent, 0 SASR scratches. Forbes emerged from gloom, graph annotated fresh with kill tallies, slouch hat dew beaded. Nguyen's done, sir. Supply veins yours. Whitaker knelt amid the dead, boonie hat shed like his old skin, fingers tracing a VC scroll, rag ghosts unmake men. The colonel rose, eyes forged predator. Polish was parade pyre, erasure, eternity's edge. Word thundered brass echelons, phantom veils progeny birthed doctrine shift. U.S. field mods echoing SSR heresy by TET 69. Adaptive disruption mandatory, but deeper. Whitaker's revelation etched soul deep. Penned in personal dispatch unsealed 2001. Vainglory's gleam summons graves. True soldiers unbecome human. Ghosts in rags, reaping unseen. In war's savage calculus, the polished parish advertised. The ragged rule eternal, silhouette sacrificed to shadow's throne.